So, there I was, standing in the crowded hallway on the very last day of high school, the kind of chaotic buzz that feels like the world's about to flip upside down and you're right in the middle of it. Everyone's rushing to say their goodbyes, trading Snapchat handles like it's some sort of currency, and pictures are being snapped left and right. It was supposed to be a day wrapped in nostalgia and relief, but for me, it turned into a punch to the gut I didn't even see coming. I was chatting with Liam, one of the guys from our group, when he casually let something drop that froze me mid-sentence. He said, "Hey, by the way, did you know Jake applied to State U? Like the same damn college as you?" At first, I thought I'd misheard. Jake, my childhood best friend, the guy who'd been my partner in crime since we were 5 years old, built Lego forts with me and missed way too much sleep for late-night gaming sessions, decided to throw his hat in the ring at the exact place I was set to start a new chapter? I tried to keep it cool, but inside I felt like someone had sucker punched me in the stomach. How did we get here? Jake, who used to have my back, suddenly transforming into this competitor? It was like finding out your lifelong tag team partner was secretly training to take your spot on the team and not telling you about it. I mean, sure, I'd noticed some weird vibes over the past few months, little stabbing glitches, our usual easy conversations replaced by awkward silences, his somewhat smug smirk when I talked about scholarships or my plans for college. But this felt like a full-on betrayal I wasn't prepared to handle, especially not today. What kind of friend secretly plots to go head-to-head with you in the very next phase of life without even saying a word? And why the hell would Jake, of all people, suddenly decide to become my biggest rival? As the school bell rang for the final time, the hallways echoed with cheers and tears, but all I could focus on was this growing knot of confusion and betrayal. And somewhere deep down, I knew that this awkward little bombshell was just the beginning of a whole mess of trouble between us. Growing up with Jake was, well, it was basically like having a permanent sidekick stitched to your shadow. We met somewhere in the kindergarten chaos, both of us accidentally reaching for the same red crayon in a box, and somehow that tiny moment kickstarted a decade-plus friendship that felt unbreakable. We were those kids who showed up to school with matching backpacks because, honestly, we'd decided it was cooler that way. We spent summer days racing our bikes to nowhere in particular, and evenings plotting out video game strategies like we were training for some kind of championship no one else knew existed. Our parents joked we'd get married or start a business together someday, which now just feels like kind of a cruel joke given how things turned out. But back then, it felt like nothing could come between us. We had that kind of trust where we'd finish each other's sentences and knew exactly when to back the other up, even if it meant getting into a bit of trouble. In school, we were the classic duo. You know, the pair teachers both dreaded and enjoyed, the ones who disrupt just enough to be entertaining but still turn in solid work. Same lunch table, same group of friends, and yeah, sharing that dumb inside joke about having to save each other for Mrs. Thomas's pop quizzes. The kind of friendship that felt built to last. But once we hit high school, things started to shift, almost imperceptibly at first. It wasn't like some explosive event snapped the bond, it was more like a slow leak in a tire, barely noticeable, until suddenly you're flat on the side of the road. I mean, high school does that to most people, right? But with Jake, the cracks began to show in funny little ways. For instance, it started with grades. We'd always been neck and neck academically, but junior year I noticed he got way more intense about the A's. Like the guy who used to say, "whatever man," about test scores suddenly became a total nerd warrior, staying up late with textbooks spread all over the floor. At first, I was impressed. Had to admit, I was proud he was pushing himself. But then it felt like the friendly competition was morphing into this quiet pressure cooker. And then there was the whole social thing. I'm not gonna lie, Jake started attracting a bit more attention, especially with the girls. Not in a way I'd expect since he'd always been kind of shy, more like funny and easygoing than the dude who goes for the spotlight. But suddenly, he was the guy cracking jokes that made the whole hallway roar, charming teachers with that sideways grin of his, and yes, casually becoming the center of group conversations. Ooh. I was still there, just kind of watching from the sidelines, realizing there was this new Jake who seemed less like my childhood partner and more like someone else. Even calling out the obvious, our fierce back-and-forth banter started to feel different. Like when we competed for the same projects or tried to edge each other out for sports team spots. Remember that one basketball tryout where neither of us gave an inch and coach ended up picking only one starting spot? Yeah, that felt like the first real time we went toe-to-toe, and I swear I caught Jake giving me this look, like he was savoring the win more than he should have. What really started to twist the knife, though, were the small moments. The kind you don't always notice until you think back and realize they piled up like little breadcrumbs leading nowhere good. Like the time he showed up late to our group study session and, no joke, sat like 5 feet away scrolling through his phone. Or when he laughed a bit too hard at some joke I didn't quite hear, then shrugged me off with a, "You're paranoid, lighten up." Or those random snaps he stopped sending me after basketball games, the ones that used to say "good game, man," but turned into nothing. And then, there was the subtle flexing of who had more control, whether it was in conversations with our friends or planning weekend hangouts. Suddenly, I was the one waiting for the text that never came, the last-minute invite that got conveniently forgotten. Those moments rippled through our friendship in a way that was less about outright fighting and more about silent territory marking. It's weird how rivalry sneaks in dressed as a joke, a challenge, or just a normal teen vibe. But when it hits your closest friend, it's like this emotional tug of war where you're both pulling away while still holding on to threads of what came before. I kept wondering if Jake felt it too, the way the air between us was getting thicker, harder to breathe in. Maybe he didn't even realize how much he'd changed, or maybe he just didn't want to say it out loud. Looking back, there were signs I missed. Warning lights flashing quietly under the surface while we kept up the charade of same team. But I guess that's how these things go, how friendships evolve or devolve depending on what kind of players you become. So yeah, we went from being basically inseparable to this weird dance of competition that neither of us really asked to start. And honestly, with everything stacking up, it felt less like friendship and more like a game where the rules had suddenly changed. At the time, I just wanted to understand how we'd ended up here. Two guys who'd sworn to have each other's backs, now sizing each other up like rivals gearing for whatever came next. And then came that final twist, Jake throwing his hat in the ring at State U, the college I'd already staked my claim on, but he never mentioned to me, not once. That choice? It wasn't just a college application, it was a full-on declaration of war without the courtesy of a heads up. Somehow, that single move made everything real. The friendly competition was gone. The cracks had turned into chasms. And with that, I was left staring down the biggest question. How exactly did my childhood best friend transform into my fiercest rival? In the beginning, the competition between Jake and me was like this weird background hum, not loud, but definitely there. You know how two friends sometimes tease each other, pushing just enough to get a reaction? Well, that's how it started. He'd sneak into my conversations with a clever comeback on a test answer, or drop in a one-up on my basketball stats. Nothing heavy, just that undercurrent, like we were constantly trying to one-up each other, hoping the other would crack first. I remember this one math test in sophomore year, a killer algebra exam where I thought I nailed every question. I was feeling pretty confident until Jake casually strolls up to me the next day and says, "Hey, I got 102 on that thing." I blinked. 102? What kind of test even does that? Apparently some curve or extra credit thing, but man, hearing that from Jake just felt like a little jab. I muttered something like, "Of course you did," but inside I was both impressed and annoyed. And then there was lunch. Oh man, lunch became this battlefield of sly remarks and tiny gestures meant to claim space. I'd grab my usual spot at our table, but suddenly Jake's buddies would fill in around him like a fortress. Once, I caught him deliberately spilling a bit of his soda, then looking back at me with this half smirk like he was saying, "Gotcha." I probably looked like a clown trying to wipe the sticky mess from my shirt while everyone else just laughed. But things took a turn during the school play that year. We both auditioned for the lead role in Our Town. I had been dreaming about this part since forever, practicing lines in the mirror, going over the script at night. Jake? Quiet about it, but you could tell he had his eyes on it too. When the cast list went up on the bulletin board, there it was, Jake's name at the top for the lead, mine tucked away in the ensemble. I swear, I felt the entire lunchroom blur for a second. That spotlight I thought was mine suddenly got hijacked, and for the first time, the rivalry felt like it had teeth. The usual jokes and competitions didn't feel so harmless anymore. It wasn't just about fun or pushing each other, it was about something deeper, something personal. After that, things got messy. Rumors started swirling around like wildfire. Someone said Jake had told people I was exaggerating about my scholarship offers. I heard that someone else thought I was spreading gossip about his late-night cram sessions to make him look desperate. Whether any of it was true or not didn't even matter. It became this tangled web of distrust. We tried to patch things up once, sitting down one afternoon after school by the old park bench we'd claimed as our hangout spot since middle school. I thought maybe we could clear the air, talk through whatever was going wrong. But it devolved, fast accusations flying, voices rising until we both stormed off like stubborn kids who forgot they were supposed to be on the same side. And then there was that friendship pact, the one we made junior year, this solemn promise that no matter what happened, we'd have each other's backs through the chaos of senior year and beyond. It was written on this scrap of notebook paper, signed and kept safe like a treasure. But as tensions rose, I caught Jake tossing it aside one day, crumpled up and forgotten on his bedroom floor when I'd gone over for a pre-study session. It crushed me, seeing that betrayal in such a simple act. Graduation was supposed to be the big, happy send-off, but for Jake and me, it turned into the final showdown. The ceremony hall was packed, the air thick with excitement and nerves. But when we locked eyes, it was less best friends and more like two gladiators sizing each other up. The speech ended, caps flew, and the crowd cheered, but all I could think about was how far we'd drifted. Later, outside by the parking lot, I blurted out everything bottled up for months. The jealousy, the rumors, the silent wars. Jake's face was unreadable, maybe a bit pained, but he fired back with things I hadn't expected, revealing his own frustrations, how he felt sidelined, like he was competing not just against me, but against the person I used to be. That confrontation was messy, raw, and ended with no clear winners. Just two guys stuck at a crossroads neither wanted to face. We left it hanging, like a breath held too long. Fast forward to college orientation day, we both show up at State U, surprise still fresh and awkward. The auditorium buzzed with new faces, stranger than the old halls of high school. And there we were, standing side by side again, wondering if this was the moment we'd finally figure it out or just close the door on the years we shared forever. The auditorium was buzzing, filled with that nervous new kid energy, and there we were, Jake and me caught in this awkward orbit like accidental satellites forced back into the same space we thought we'd both escaped from. I was pretty sure every eye around us was picking up the tension, but honestly, I was too wrapped up in the moment to notice much beyond the tight knot in my chest. I finally gave in and broke the silence. "So, State U, huh?" Jake shrugged, that sideways grin he used when he was trying to look casual. "Yeah, surprise, surprise." It was weird hearing him say it out loud after all the whispered rumors and those sneaky moments where I found out through the grapevine. The truth sitting there, plain and unadorned, hit different. He wasn't hiding it anymore. I took a breath and said, "Why didn't you just tell me? We could have talked." His grin faltered just a bit, and there was this flicker, a crack in the wall he'd been putting up. "Honestly, I guess I didn't want to make things weird. Didn't think it would matter till it did." I nodded, feeling this sudden rush of empathy crash over what had felt like endless frustration. "Yeah, me too. But it got messy, didn't it? I mean, look at us. Two guys who were supposed to have each other's backs, and now it's like we're walking on glass just trying not to say the wrong thing." Jake's face softened, like he was remembering half the years before high school when the rivalry was just a joke. "I didn't mean for things to go like this. I guess somewhere along the line, I got caught up in wanting to prove something. To you, to myself, I don't even know exactly." I chuckled a little sadly. "Yeah, me too. Maybe that's the trap. We got so focused on winning against each other, we forgot about actually being friends." We sat there for a while, the noise of the crowd fading into a distant hum. No grand apologies, no epic reconciliation, just two people finally saying aloud what had been buried beneath years of tension and hurt. "It's weird," Jake said quietly, "but I think I learned more about myself in this rivalry than I ever did back when we were just hanging out. Maybe that's the point?" "Maybe," I agreed. "Maybe some friendships don't survive rivalry. Or maybe they just have to change the way we change. Maybe the person you were when you were 8 doesn't match the person you're becoming at 18. He smiled, genuine this time. "Guess we'll find out if this thing's got any life left in it." We parted ways that day with a handshake that wasn't quite as stiff as I expected. It wasn't the same bond we had as kids, but it wasn't a broken bone either, more like a scar that told a story. Walking back through that campus, I realized something important. Rivalry wasn't about winning or losing, it was about facing the truth of who you are when everything you thought you knew gets flipped upside down. And sometimes, that truth is messy, uncomfortable, but necessary. So here I am, not with all the answers, but with this uneasy peace, wondering if some friendships are meant to survive the fight, or if letting go is just part of growing into who we're supposed to be. Either way, Jake and I, well, we've got a long story still ahead. Whether it's as friends, rivals, or something in between, only time's going to tell.